I 29 and cheated on the love of my life. 38. And it's the single greatest regret of my life. I didn't plan for it to happen, nor did I think I was capable of such a betrayal. Yet, here I am, grappling with the consequences of my actions, knowing I've shattered the heart of the one person who truly mattered to me. We'd been together for just over a year when everything fell apart. When we first met, I was coming out of a 6-year relationship that left me drained and emotionally wrecked. That relationship was toxic in every way imaginable, filled with lies, fights, and manipulation. I wasn't ready to date again, but then she came into my life. She was different kind, compassionate, patient. She had this way of making me feel seen and heard, something I hadn't experienced in years. But even with her, I felt the weight of my past holding me back. I told her I wasn't ready for a serious relationship, and we decided to take a break. That break didn't last long. One night, consumed by loneliness and longing, I showed up at her door at 2 a.m., drunk and begging her to take me back. I poured out everything I was feeling, and instead of shutting the door in my face, she let me in. That night marked the beginning of what I thought was a second chance, not just for us as a couple, but for me as a person. Over the next year, we became inseparable. We went on vacations together, spent almost all our free time with each other, and built a life that felt intertwined in every way. My family adored her from the moment they met her. They saw what I saw: her warmth, her intelligence, her kindness. I started to believe I'd finally found the person I could spend my life with. But as perfect as everything seemed, cracks began to show. She'd been struggling with her sense of direction in life. She wasn't happy with her career and felt unfulfilled, but she didn't know what to do about it. She expressed doubts not just about her future, but about ours as well. Was I the person she wanted to be with long term? Did she even want to be in a relationship right now? Hearing her doubts hurt, but I stayed. I loved her deeply, and I believed we could get through anything as long as we faced it together. I wanted to help her find herself, so I did everything I could to support her. I sent her job postings for things she'd once said she wanted to pursue. I offered to help her budget so she could pay off her debts and feel less overwhelmed. I gave her books to inspire her and reignite her passion for life. But no matter what I did, nothing seemed to help. She became more withdrawn, more distant. The affection and intimacy that once defined our relationship faded. She stopped cuddling with me at night, stopped complimenting me or initiating conversations. She used to give me massages when I was stressed or touch my arm as we talked, small gestures that reminded me I was loved. But now, every night, she turned her back to me in bed, and her silence felt louder than words. We were supposed to attend her family's wedding together, a big milestone in our relationship. It would have been my first time meeting her family, and I was excited about it. I wanted to show them how much I cared for her, how serious I was about our future. But as the wedding approached, her depression deepened, and our relationship grew colder. A week before the wedding, while lying in bed, we talked about whether I should go. I told her I didn't see how I could meet her family and pretend everything was fine when she didn't even know if she wanted to be with me. She didn't argue or try to reassure me. She just agreed, saying maybe it was for the best if I stayed home. That moment broke something inside me. It felt like confirmation that she'd already given up on us. While she was at the wedding, I stayed home, drowning in misery. My mind spiraled with thoughts of our relationship, how perfect it had been, how it had unraveled, and how powerless I felt to fix it. I felt unwanted, unloved, and utterly alone. Desperate to escape those feelings, I made the worst decision of my life. That night, I went out with a friend to a club, hoping to distract myself. We met up with some other friends there, and for a while, I tried to lose myself in the music and the crowd. At some point, I ended up alone with a woman I vaguely knew. She knew I was supposed to be at the wedding and asked why I wasn't there. I told her everything, how I felt like my relationship was falling apart, how I didn't know what to do. She shared her own struggles, and in that moment, we connected over our mutual pain. Then, before I knew it, we kissed. It wasn't some fiery, passionate moment. It was messy, confusing, and filled with guilt before it even ended. I pulled away almost immediately, realizing what I had done. But the damage was already done. I'd betrayed the woman who trusted me, the woman who took me back when I was at my lowest, the woman who saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. The guilt consumed me. I didn't know whether to confess or try to bury it, but the weight of what I'd done was unbearable. When she came back from the wedding, I couldn't even look her in the eye. She noticed something was off right away and asked me what was wrong. I told her the truth. I told her about the club, the woman, the kiss. I told her how sorry I was, how much I hated myself for what I'd done. She didn't yell or cry at first. She just stared at me, her face blank, as if she was trying to process the words I'd just said. Then, without a word, she walked out of the room. For the next few days, she barely spoke to me. I tried to explain, to apologize, to make her understand how much I regretted it, but nothing I said made a difference. She told me she needed time to think, so I gave her space, even though it killed me to stay away. When she finally did talk to me, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. She said she couldn't trust me anymore, that what I'd done had shattered her faith in me and in our relationship. She told me she'd been questioning our future before, but now there was no question. She couldn't be with me. I begged her to give me another chance, to let me prove I could be the man she deserved. I promised to do whatever it took to rebuild her trust, to make things right. But she shook her head and said something I'll never forget. "You weren't just my boyfriend. You were my safe place, my person. And now, you've taken that away from me. I don't think I can ever feel safe with you again." Hearing those words broke me. I'd always thought of myself as someone who would never hurt the people I love, someone who would protect and cherish them. But in that moment, I realized I'd become the very thing I hated most, someone who destroys the people who trust them. She moved out a week later. Watching her pack her things and leave was the most painful experience of my life. Every item she took felt like another piece of her slipping away, another reminder of what I'd lost. It's been months since she left, and I'm still grappling with the aftermath. I've tried to move on, to focus on work and hobbies, to be a better person. But no matter what I do, the guilt and regret linger. I've thought about reaching out to her, about trying one last time to fix things, but I know it's not fair to her. She deserves to find happiness, and I've already caused her enough pain. Cheating wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice, a terrible, selfish choice that I'll regret for the rest of my life. I've learned the hard way that love isn't just about feelings. It's about actions, about being the kind of person your partner can rely on even when things get tough. I'll never forgive myself for what I did to her, but I'm trying to use this experience to become a better person. I'm in therapy now, working through the issues that led me to sabotage the best thing I've ever had. I don't know if I'll ever be able to love someone the way I loved her, but I do know this. If I ever get the chance to love again, I'll never take it for granted. I'll never make the same mistake twice. To anyone reading this who's struggling in their relationship, I have one piece of advice. Communicate. Even when it's hard, even when you're scared, talk to your partner. Don't let silence or doubt drive a wedge between you. And above all, don't take the easy way out when things get tough, because the easy way out often leads to the hardest road of all. The second it happened, my heart dropped. Time seemed to slow, and a cold wave of regret washed over me. I pulled away immediately, consumed by guilt and self-loathing. What had I done? How could I betray the woman I loved like this? My thoughts spiraled out of control as the gravity of my mistake sank in. That fleeting moment, one I hadn't even anticipated, now stood as a towering monument to my failure. I couldn't face her after what I'd done. On her way home from the wedding, I called her. My voice shook as I told her it was over. "I don't think we're going to work out," I said, forcing the words out through the lump in my throat. But I didn't tell her the real reason. I was too ashamed, too afraid of the consequences. The silence that followed her soft "why" was unbearable. I mumbled something vague and hung up before I could crumble completely. The next day, she came over. Her determination was written all over her face. She was ready to fight for us, to address whatever had gone wrong. In her hands, she carried a small potted plant and a note, a gift of peace and hope. The note was filled with heartfelt words about how much she loved me, how she wanted to grow together and overcome our struggles. She had no idea what I'd done, and that made her kindness cut even deeper. I couldn't keep the truth from her any longer. As she poured her heart out, I broke down. My voice trembled as I confessed everything. I told her about the kiss, a moment of weakness, a fleeting mistake that meant nothing, and how it was the single worst decision of my life. Tears streamed down my face as I begged her to understand, to see that it wasn't a reflection of my love for her. It was a reflection of my own brokenness, my inability to handle the darkness I'd been grappling with. Her face crumbled as she listened. I could see the pain in her eyes, the disbelief, the heartbreak. She didn't scream or shout. She didn't lash out. Instead, she sat in silence, her trembling hands clutching the plant she'd brought for me. The silence was deafening. Every second of it was a reminder of what I'd destroyed. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought we were a team. I thought you loved me enough to talk to me instead of this." For the next 2 days, I tried everything to make it right. I called her, texted her, wrote her long emails pouring out my heart. I begged for her forgiveness, promising her that I would do anything to make amends. I swore that I would spend the rest of my life proving how sorry I was. But my words felt hollow, even to me. How could I expect her to believe me when I barely believed in myself? Eventually, I realized that no amount of begging could undo what I'd done. She needed space to heal, and I had to respect that. The last time we spoke, her voice was firm but kind. "I need time," she said. "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I need to figure that out on my own." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Take all the time you need," I replied. "I'll wait as long as it takes." Now, I'm left alone with my guilt, which feels like a physical weight pressing down on me. The world seems muted, drained of color and sound. I can't eat, I can't sleep, and every time I close my eyes, I see her face. I see her smile, the one that used to light up my darkest days. I see her tears, the pain etched into her expression when I shattered the trust we'd built together. And I see the way she used to look at me, with love and belief in who I was. That look is gone now, replaced by something I can't bear to think about. I hate myself for putting her through this. I know she's struggling with her own challenges, and instead of supporting her, I've added to her burden. I've taken someone I love more than anything and handed her pain. That knowledge tears me apart every single day. I keep replaying the moment in my head, wishing I could go back, wishing I could stop myself from making that terrible choice. The hardest part is knowing that I wanted to spend my life with her. She wasn't just my girlfriend, she was my partner, my confidant, the person who made me feel whole. I still love her with all my heart, and I know I always will. But love isn't enough to undo what I've done. Love can't erase the betrayal or heal the wound I've caused. I've started therapy, hoping to understand myself better and prevent anything like this from happening again. I've begun digging into my insecurities and emotional issues, trying to untangle the web of self-doubt and fear that led me to such a dark place. It's a painful process, but it's necessary. I can't change the past, but I can work on becoming a better person, someone who deserves the kind of love and trust she gave me. Every day, I write her letters. I don't send them, I'm not sure if I ever will. But putting my feelings into words helps me process the storm inside me. In these letters, I apologize again and again. I tell her how much she means to me, how deeply I regret my actions, and how I'm working to become the person she thought I was. These letters are my way of holding on to hope, even when it feels like hope is slipping through my fingers. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me, and I don't blame her if she doesn't. Forgiveness is a gift, not something I can demand or expect. But I hope that one day, she'll see how much I've changed, how committed I am to being better. I hope that one day, I can earn back her trust and love. Until then, all I can do is carry the weight of my mistake and use it as a reminder to never take someone I love for granted again. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what I would say to her if I could see her one more time. I imagine standing in front of her, looking into her eyes, and telling her how sorry I am. I would tell her that she's the best thing that ever happened to me, that losing her was the wake-up call I didn't realize I needed. I would tell her that I'm grateful for the time we had together, even if it wasn't as long as I'd hoped. But then reality sets in, and I'm reminded that words aren't enough. Actions speak louder, and my actions hurt her more than any words ever could. So I keep working on myself, not just for her, but for me. I want to be someone who's worthy of love and trust, someone who can look in the mirror without flinching. I want to build a future where I never make the same mistake again. Her absence has taught me more about myself than I ever wanted to know. It's shown me the depth of my flaws, but also my capacity for growth. It's forced me to confront the parts of myself I'd been avoiding, to face the darkness I'd tried to ignore. And while the journey is painful, it's also necessary. Because if I can't learn from this, then I've truly failed not just her, but myself. Love is a fragile, beautiful thing. It requires care, honesty, and courage. I've learned that the hard way, and I'll carry that lesson with me for the rest of my life. Whether or not she ever forgives me, I'll always be grateful for the love we shared. She taught me what it means to be vulnerable, to open my heart and let someone in. And even though I've lost her, I'll cherish those memories forever. For now, all I can do is keep moving forward. One day at a time, one step at a time. I'll never stop loving her, and I'll never stop hoping that we can find our way back to each other. But even if we don't, I'll honor her by becoming the best version of myself, because she deserves that. And so do I.